All right, so we are live now, and let me say from here in New York, good morning, well, good afternoon in Accra, good evening in Uganda. In South Africa, what time is it? 4 o'clock? So, well, late afternoon. Good afternoon from South Africa. And we are connecting the continent live today on the African Journalist Hangout. Today, we are doing a special edition of COVID-19. As you can see already, our team is on the line, and a very warm welcome to everyone.
Hi, good afternoon. Good morning.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Well, so as the various African countries ease their lockdowns after weeks of varying levels of restrictions, we are connecting the African continent in a live discussion on the impact of COVID-19. Yes, and we hope to make this a regular session, hopefully. And today we are focusing on the impact, not only on our economies, but on people who have been bringing us the news, the information, the entertainment. That's our journalists, as well as our media houses. From East Africa to the South and West Africa, this is definitely the African Journalist Hangout. And I'm excited to announce our rich panel for today's discussion. From East Africa, we are joined by Dicta Asimwe. And Dicta is journalist with the Daily Monitor.
Nice to be here.
Hi, Dicta. Thank you. And the Daily Monitor is part of the Nation Media Group.
My video had gone for a bit, but I hope I'm back.
Yes, Dicta, we can hear you clearly. Thank you. And Dicta, you can hear me, right? Perfect. Dicta will be with us as well from very soon in Nigeria. We'll be joined by a brother we are waiting for, and hopefully once he comes online, I'll introduce him accordingly. From Dakar, Senegal, Adolphus, Mawolo. Good morning, Mawolo.
It's after 2 p.m., so it's good afternoon.
Okay, good afternoon, Mawolo. Thank you so much. And Adolphus Mawolo is editor at West Africa Democracy Radio. He's a former colleague and a good friend of mine. In fact, he is my roommate. We stayed in the same apartment together for almost 3 years. Mawolo, pleased to see you.
Thank you, Benjamin.
Thank you. And from Ghana, we have a brother and a former colleague at the multimedia group. That's Joy FM and My Joy Online. He is currently head of communication at Ghana's National Petroleum Authority, and he is Anny Osabutey. Welcome, bro. All right, we'll hear from Anny. Anny is definitely on the line. Obviously, we know our continent and some of the challenges with the connection and all, but Anny is live there. Anny, can you hear me now? Okay, there's a bit of delay. Definitely Anny will join us. And from South Africa, we have perfect, Anny. Thank you so much, bro. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
And from South Africa, we have a strong representation. We have my sister and good friend, Lindy Shabangu. Lindy, a very warm welcome.
Thank you, my brother from another mother and another continent.
Exactly. Exactly.
Hi,
I remember about 5 or so years ago, I featured on your radio program in Joburg, and it was fun.
Yeah, it's always fun to be on radio. I mean, radio is like, we play with people's minds and create that synergy, that storyline that people always to hear more. I'm sure Preetesh, who's joining us today, also feels the same way because he loves telling stories. And with his experience from a radio background as well, he's forever constantly telling stories as well.
Exactly. And talking of Preetesh, let me introduce this gentleman to you. We are glad that we're joined by this new CEO of one of the continent's biggest branding and communication brands, Loeries company, and he is Preetesh Sewraj. Preetesh, we are very happy to have you. A very warm welcome.
Thank you so much. It's good to be on, and it's good to be able to chat to everyone today.
Perfect. So now let's get rolling. We'll take it across, and let me begin from Dakar, Senegal. Adolphus, I want to ask, let's do a personal conversation first. How has COVID-19 been impacting you, your work, your movements? Let's do a bit of personal experience in terms of COVID-19. Maybe beginning with me, I had some close encounters Before the lockdown here in New York in March, there was, the US primaries have been going on, and I took part in the election coverage with Associated Press. And then a day after the meeting, they sent a mail and said someone got exposed to COVID-19. So all those who went for the coverage in the newsroom, and we spent 2 days covering the midterms. So they said, well, you could be potentially exposed. And that was a big, that kind of anxiety, waiting to see what will happen. Thank God, after 2 weeks, I had no reaction. So I'm alive. Tell me your story, beginning with you.
Lucky you. Well,
yes,
I think the experiences are similar, but a bit different. Personally, we've had to change the mode of work at the radio station here because before the outbreak of COVID-19, we work based on shifts. But with the emergence of COVID-19, we've had to change the pattern of work. That means that some people would have to work from a distance from home. So we had to reorganize, set up equipment. And the station had to make provisions to empower everyone so that those who are not supposed to be at the radio station, they could easily stay home and work. So we've managed to continue to work that way to decongest so that in case of a potential case, everyone wouldn't be at risk. That's one. And then the second thing is before the outbreak of COVID, we were sometimes hiring private vehicles to go to work, taxi, in the instance where the office vehicle was not available. But with the emergence of COVID, the station has made it mandatory that everyone is transported to the office and taken back home in the official office vehicle to minimize the risk of infection or any risk of infection. So these are some of the little changes that we have initiated at the level of the Bureau, but also we've tried to limit inviting guests to the station. Also part of measures to limit any risk of infection. So now we call people by phone. We encourage people to send us audio messages by WhatsApp. So it's all part of just trying to do it all over again. Doing things the way we've not been doing before. And then we had curfew imposed, and that limited movement. By 7 p.m. you had to be home, and you imagine working for a radio station where you have to be on shift at night, sometimes until 1 a.m. before you go home. And once we had to be at home by 8 p.m., that in itself was a problem, because for the first 10 days of the imposition of curfew, there was no exception. Journalists were not exempted from this. So it took the leadership of the Journalist Association here in Dakar to negotiate so that they could allow us to go to work without any hindrance. So that was overcome. But in the meantime, and before then, by 6 p.m. or before 6 p.m., we had to arrange all of the interviews, do the interviews and have the sounds, and then take them home with us, work. And we have a platform, our station, West Africa Democracy Radio, created a platform on Infomaniac. You can also do a video conference like this on that platform. So you can work from anywhere in the world and just put it on the platform, and anyone at the radio station or anywhere can access the platform. So it made work a lot more easier for all of us. So you just work from home, you put, do the compilation and put everything on the platform, and people can.
So a lot of innovation there to cope with the situation.
Right.
Thank you, Adolphus. Dictor, I think we are with you now. Dictor, tell us how the COVID has impacted on the operations of the Daily Monitor, part of the Nation Media Group in East Africa. Okay, let's take it to South Africa. Preetesh, let's come to you. You have a huge outlet, a huge organization to run. First of all, congratulations for stepping into that big shoes. How has it been? I mean, and especially coming into an organization at the time of a crisis must be quite a challenging one for you. How have you taken the news? You hardly celebrated your welcome and then this. So how have you been managing in all these roles?
Yeah, it has been a bit of a challenge because I actually officially took over the role during the COVID-19 lockdown here. And one of the challenges that I had is, leading up to this, we had quite a firm plan in terms of the impact that we were going to have for the entire year. That's one. The second thing is I also had a full travel schedule planned where I was, planning on being in Nigeria, in Kenya, traveling even up into the Middle East, into areas like Turkey and the UAE. And I had this immense travel plan in place. And immediately, because COVID-19, it meant that I couldn't have these interactions that were actually planned. Also for the organization as well, in terms of our communication objectives, COVID-19 has put a damper in our ability to reach a lot of people and speak to a lot of people and have the personal impact. And I think one of the things that you have to look at is how do you put strategic plans in place to negate the impact of COVID-19 from a communication perspective. So some of the things that we've been doing is looking for opportunities to excite people across Africa with the ideas of finding a solution together. So we launched a campaign called Wake the Nation that allowed people from across Africa and the Middle East to share ideas in terms of, the challenges of COVID-19 that they're experiencing and how we can find a solution. So think about it. COVID-19 is on the topmost level that we focus on. But we forget that it brings on issues like this, loneliness, where you might be living alone, you don't have the ability to interact with other people. You might have challenges in terms of transportation, as our brother was also chatting about over there as well, where you now have to have all of this new changes and all of this. But I think one of the key things that we're working on is how do you find solutions to those challenges and empower the entire continent to do that. We also started something called the Loeries Creative Hour, which is grown from an idea to an absolute channel empowering people across the continent to network with some amazing individuals and share ideas. So I think one of the key things that we realize is, yes, COVID-19 is a challenge. Starting this time has been a challenge, but it's also an opportunity for innovation. And it might be the catalyst for some of the innovation that we need to bring us closer together right now.
And we'll come to be looking at some of, Adolphus mentioned some of the innovations they have already been taking. Something that we often even take for granted, like WhatsApp, for example, using WhatsApp to receive audio, using WhatsApp to receive videos and photos from the field. Here in the US, people are creating studios in their bedrooms, in their kitchens, in their basements, basically to broadcast. I'm excited that we've been joined by a colleague, a brother, Alaji. Naziru Abubakar. He was a recent colleague. We both graduated from NYU recently, and I'm glad that he has been appointed the new CEO of the Daily Trust, one of Nigeria's biggest newspapers. And,
wow, congratulations.
Congrats, Naziru.
Thank you.
And as well, my condolences. Naziru lost his father during the COVID, I think just about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he was buried. In fact, he couldn't even attend because he is in Lake in Abuja, and I think the father died around Kano. So Naziru, have my condolences.
Yeah, condolences.
My brother. Thank you, and all the others.
Yes, and Naziru, I think your story is also pretty much the same with the CEO of Loeries, Preetesh, who spoke a bit earlier. You all stepped into bigger organizations at a time of crisis, COVID-19. Tell me how your operations at the Daily Trust has been impacted. Obviously, we all know the media, but specifically to yours, give us how it's been impacted and how you've been coping.
So the biggest impact, apart from our day-to-day activities at Daily Trust, is on our upcoming projects. We have this big idea of going into television, for example, and we are in the middle, kind of like, not in the middle, but we are at the very critical phase of that project. We have a consultant who is working. The consultant is not Nigerian. She's from Kenya. So she's half Nigerian, half Kenyan. So, but she's based in Kenya. So she came in January. She started with all these moving around the country, conducting feasibility studies, speaking to market analysts, and putting together kind of like working documents before we move to the second phase of the thing. But suddenly, the COVID thing came in. And so we now had to stop that project at the moment. And also, but the consultant could not even travel back to Kenya because of the travel restriction. So she's kind of like stuck in Nigeria, but still working remotely, even though there is little that she could do because her work involves traveling to different parts of Nigeria. So that's number one. But also on our day-to-day activities, for example, our major product is the newspaper, the print edition that we produce. We have a daily edition, and then we have 2 weekends edition, each on Sunday and Saturday. So, but all these kind of like, and we have quite a large number of staff, editorial and other supporting staff. But we have to ask majority of them to stay at home, be working from home. So even in the editorial department, there are very few people that are coming physically to office, and also few people in the production area as well. So it's been very challenging for reporters because most of the beats are shut. So usually all we cover now is COVID directly or indirectly. So you see the challenge. So we have to cancel some specialized pages, for example, because there is more or less little to report in those beats. So we're trying to kind of like, but at the same time, trying to turn this COVID tragedy into opportunities. For example, in increasing our online traffic and engaging more people because people need information during crisis. So we are taking advantage of that to bring in, to launch new verticals, for example, specialized newsletter on coronavirus, and some lifeline social media programs about the virus and how to stay safe, and kind of like, because in Nigeria we have problems where some people don't even believe in this thing. So the communication, so this thing is coming and teaming up with government and even some UN agencies to help spread communication about public health. So these are some of the things that we're doing, but financially, obviously, as you mentioned rightly, this thing has taken a toll on us as well, because imagine the advertising revenue has gone down drastically, and not only for us, but globally, but even here we are taking our own share of that.
Naziru, thank you. And obviously we'll be coming back to know also, you've been talking about some of the innovations. Let's go to Ghana now. Annie, you've been, we're glad that you've been on, or you've been hanging on and following. Annie, tell us, you are, head of communications at the National Petroleum Authority. Obviously, Ghana has also not been left in the hook. For months, Ghana have been on lockdown. How has it impacted your work, and how did your outlet, how did your organization improvise during the period?
Oh, thank you very much, and good afternoon once again. Well, obviously, I think that the stories are kind of similar across the board, especially with the respect to our work, because I work in the petroleum industry, so we did not get any holiday, for want of a better word, it's because they ask, a lot of people were kind of they were asked to work from home. I didn't have that particular luxury of working from home. I was constantly on the road because it's petroleum services and the fact that the country has to run essentially. So we are constantly working to check that things were happening. And I remember a day after even before the lockdown itself, there was this wild rumor going around that there's going to be a shortage of gas, for example,
Right.
At that time, I think I was speaking in terms of the virus spread in the numbers too. So we had this huge numbers of people massing up at retail outlet, gas filling stations, and so I have to be on the radio consistently, trying to calm nerves, trying to tell people that it is not true. Because, social media was kind of used to circulate this whole thing that once the lockdown happens, people are not going to get fuel and things like that, So it happens that I have to go on the radio. And what it means is also that, how it works, you have to be shuffling from one radio station to the other. And then the other people also want to come to the office and things like that. And you have to allow them. But with respect to what we have done, initially, like in the past, because I work with communication, we try to shoot our own videos, we try to work on our own materials and things like that. We haven't done it.
Yes, Annie, we are losing you for a bit, but yes, we'll come to Annie, and when we hopefully we get a better connection. Let's go to East Africa now. Victor, you've been a bit on and off, unfortunately, but I think I can see you clearly now. So Victor, tell me, yes, tell me, Victor, how has? Okay, hopefully when Annie is connected better, we can get back to him. But well, yeah, so Victor, please go ahead and tell me, how has COVID-19 impacted on your operations at the Daily Monitor, part of the East Africa's, the daily, the newspaper in East Africa?
Well, recently we even had to take a pay cut because normally, we can't, it's very hard to sell newspapers under the circumstances. And as you know, newspapers generally have been struggling. So this is the worst time possible. And because there was no transport, it meant the newspaper had to collect workers from their homes. The government did give some stickers, but they just didn't give enough, especially for social media, which is a fairly big organization, because it has about 2 radio stations, two TV stations, and then 2 newspapers. And because we had to share stickers, we couldn't all get the stickers. So it meant the company had to pick most of the workers, and that's for those who even own cards. Of course, most of the food soldiers in East Africa, or generally in Africa, are not paid very well, so they depend on public transport, which has been suspended for since the beginning of April. So actually since the end of March. So it's been a real big problem. It meant a little bit we are spending more and not taking in much. So the company asked workers to sacrifice for a short while, 3 months, and then hopefully things will get better. But yeah, there have been a lot of problems, including failure to sell newspapers. I think so. I am an editor for the weekend, and we are selling half of what we used to sell in terms of newspaper copies, and that's how we make our money. We are not getting adverts most of the time because most of the sales executives are home and most of the offices are closed anyway, so there are not many people who are advertising unless you had an old contract that is still running. There is nothing going on. So
yes, Dixon, sorry, I have to cut in because your line is surely been a bit it's been breaking, but you had so much great you have so much experience to talk about, from accepting a pay cut. That is, well, on the platform, has anyone else accepted a pay cut yet? Tell me, yes, just to know.
Yes, I did.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Is this Naziru?
Yes.
Naziru, tell me about it. Tell me that experience. That was not, especially for a beginner, coming into a role like that.
Yeah, because, in bad situations, as a colleague from East Africa just said, you have to face the reality on ground. because these are not good times, obviously.
Right.
And the COVID-19 and its effect, it's not a joke, you know, it's a reality. So when you're clearly saying that your revenue is massively going down, so you know you have to take measures that will help you survive. Because all this thing we're talking about is about survival. Because you don't want to start sacking people. Because this is the worst time to for anyone to lose his or her job. So instead of sacking people, so the management decide like, okay, let's look at it. The best way to kind of like.
Yes, Nas. Okay, we're losing us.
Go and then, yeah. So now we decided to say, okay, let's take some pay cut, especially for the top guys. Let's allow the smaller chaps to continue, yeah, because what they earn is not as high as what we earn. So that's how we do it. That will affect the top managers, and see. So, and it's not like a permanent thing. So it's just for a certain number of months where we believe, because things have started to improve with the gradual reopening of the country. So we have now seen things moving on, copy sales going up, advertising returning at a slow pace. But it's a very good news.
That's good news, really.
Seriously, Adolphus, this is a news. I mean, thank you for telling the story, Naziru. Thank you, Dicta, too, for what you guys are doing just to keep the public informed and also to keep operations running. Another CEO I want to experience, Preetesh, tell me, did you, in the business circles, the term is downsize when it comes to challenges, either they let go of some stuff here in the US. The word that's been rolling around is furloughed. They haven't been dismissed technically, but they are asked to stay home, and a lot of them without pay until hopefully conditions get better. How is it in your end with Loeries? Tell me, did you have to do any downsizing, dismissals, or pay cuts? How are you surviving economically?
Yeah, so it is pretty tough. So as I said, I joined at the beginning of April. One of the things that I've done, and in terms of the budgets that we're looking at, so about 25% of my annual salary package is already being something that we've negated and taken out from the projections.
25%.
Yeah. So in terms of the earning package that I have, what we've looked at is we've taken out that 25% and said, nope, that's not going to happen this year at all. We're moving that out, and potentially that could be more to keep the organization going. What we have done, though, is we've ensured that we haven't let anyone go as yet. So unfortunately, I think one of the realities is something that we have to recognize. At the first step is to preserve every single job possible. And the way to do it is to keep everyone strong and healthy. But the next step is if the organization starts struggling. We're a nonprofit organization. So we're not a commercial organization. So as a nonprofit, what we have to recognize, the next level is we may have to look at additional pay cuts if this continues any further. But the key thing that we're committed to is not to lose any jobs due to COVID-19, purely because we recognize that anyone who goes out right now is not going to have a way to actually sustain their lives and sustain their families and that entire ecosystem they've built around them.
Interesting, thank you. Well, now let's look at the latest update from our respective regions. How is the situation now? Mawolo, Adolphus, let me come to you, Senegal, because today is a big day in Senegal. I remember from yesterday when the Eid festivals began, and Dakar, as we know, is a Muslim dominant country. So celebration of Eid is a big time. And I'm told that the Ramadan played a crucial role somehow, even in the easing of restrictions because of the pressure on the political authorities for people to go to the mosque to pray, for example. Tell us, what is the latest update in terms of the numbers and how are people celebrating the day, and how could that possibly impact on the spread of the virus as well?
So, as you rightly indicated, just before the end of the holy month of Ramadan, Muslims in the country had been calling on the government to readjust the time for curfew because they had fixed it between 9 p.m. and 8 p.m. actually, 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. So with the influential religious leaders in the country calling on the president, then the government readjusted it to from 9 to 5 a.m. So that is that. With regards to the latest figure, have I checked today? I'm not quite sure, but we are pretty much close to 3,000 cases here in Senegal. Let me type and see what is there. So we are pretty close to 3,000 cases. And what has happened is that, and that is what is quite surprising, and I always tell people, why did we first close our borders, the airspace, and prevent movement in the first place? Some of the countries in the region, not just Senegal, had 5 cases of COVID when they shut their borders and prevented movement. And now that some have exceeded more than 2,000 cases, they are opening up, and you are like, okay, why are you opening? Someone told me that African leaders are doing copy and paste without even assessing the situation that they have in their own country. So Senegal is just adopting similar measures as other countries in the sub-region and elsewhere. But what I should say is that the cases are not reducing. And yesterday I had a conversation with one of the experts. What has happened is that before this weekend, Senegal was recording at least 90 cases a day because they were doing more testing. So recently, they, I think, slowed down on the number of testing that they were doing. So you can see that there is also a reduction in the number of confirmed positive cases of the virus. But it doesn't show that the virus is not spreading. What it indicates is that because they've reduced the number of tests that they've been conducting per day, so there's also a reduction in the number of confirmed positive cases, which does not explain entirely that Senegal is on the safe side of things. And with the easing of restrictions, allowing people to go to the market 6 days a week and only have 1 day off, like today, for fumigation of marketplaces, but also with the easing of restrictions, it sends a message. And that message is that conclusively that the country is doing better in terms of having a hand around the disease. That is why some of these restrictions are taking place. But of course, it's completely the contrary. And because every day we're seeing the disease evolves. Like 2 days ago, they added 2 more symptoms to the list of symptoms that health workers should look for. For example, if someone is losing taste and they can't smell, that has been added. So it's evolving, and experts cannot even tell you exactly that, okay, this is definitively what this disease is. These are its characteristics. So it's evolving and it's a learning part. And so Senegal, like all of the other countries around here, is still experiencing more cases, and community transmission is also increasing. But what I can say is that public knowledge has increased dramatically, and people seem to be playing by the rules. But the worry now is that with the easing of restrictions, there's one message that is sent, but which of course is not the reality. The message will be that, or the interpretation of the easing of restrictions could be that the country is having a hand around the disease, which is potentially dangerous because complacency will kick in. And once that kicks in, many lives will be obviously at risk.
Yes, thank you, Adolphus. Obviously, I'll come shortly to South Africa and find out, because they have the largest case now. I'm told over 20,000 as of today. But let me come to Dictor. Let me try and see if we can connect with you one more time. What is the latest figures? In fact, Uganda hasn't been doing badly. The figures are pretty low, but across East Africa, I think one of the challenges that I see, and I'm mentioning that because I also want to look at a region-wide. As at yesterday, I was listening to one of the World Health Organization representatives in the Africa Union, CDC, and their concern is that in some of the areas with conflicts, there's a potential that managing the situation could be challenging. Places like South Sudan, places like Somalia, places like some of the slums in etc. Give us a picture, if you can hear me clearly, Dictor, how things are in terms of managing the situation in East Africa now.
Yes, so in Uganda, we have just over, if you use the World Health Organization figures, we have just over 200 cases. If you use the Uganda government figures, we have under 150 cases.
Can I interrupt you?
Yes.
Yeah, Dictor, are you using an earpiece? If
yes.
you're using an earpiece, you could just remove it and give it a try, because we can barely understand.
Exactly, Dictor. Probably if you are using a earpiece, please unplug it. And whilst Dictor checks that technical one, Anny, can we come to you and give us a bit of update from Ghana? How is the situation like in Ghana now? And Ghana was one of the earlier countries to take a bold decision to say we are easing restrictions, and people had been quite hard on the government because of that. Is it how, from where you stand, how are things now, Anny?
Well, I think by the time we're coming on here, our recorded cases now is 6,680 very confirmed.
Yes, Anny. Okay, let's try Dictor now and see. Dictor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. So give us yes.
Okay, so I was saying that with the one we have just over 200 cases, and then if you use the Uganda government figures, we have just under 150 cases. That's because there has been a dispute on whether to include cases from other countries or not. Because while Uganda has been under lockdown and like taking a lot of measures, countries like South Sudan have been struggling. I hope you know that the vice president has tested positive some time back. So,
right.
And because Uganda, South Sudan, and others are landlocked, they have to get goods from the ports, which is Dar es Salaam and Nairobi. I mean, and Kenya, both of which have a fairly high number of cases. With Tanzania, the problem is that the government doesn't feel like they should invest much in COVID, in dealing with COVID. That has meant they did not close at all. So we have had many truck drivers come in who are positive and are coming from Tanzania, some are coming from Kenya, and some are coming from South Sudan, which is not testing much and therefore has a low level of cases. So
right.
East Africa has been a mixed bag in terms of how people have chosen to deal with COVID-19. You have a lockdown in Uganda, you have a lockdown of sorts in Kenya, you have nothing going on in Tanzania, and then in South Sudan, because of its fragility, they are trying, but they are unable to test, so they have sent tests to neighboring countries. Their testing abilities have improved, but it's not that great either. So,
Victor, we're trying very hard to but we still haven't the line is very scratchy, but we hope it gets better as we go. Yes, I know you're doing, but
someone made a suggestion. Sorry to comment. Someone made a suggestion. If you could just switch off the camera, it's likely that
and just use the audio. Yes, better. True. Sometimes the audio quality gets better as you speak. So we'll try that again when we come back to you, Dictor. Thank you. Dictor was trying to tell us a bit more about Uganda. Definitely has a few cases, as she was mentioning, but then she was also looking at the impact on the region wide from places where there is conflict. Obviously, South Africa has the highest case now. And Lindy, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Sorry about that. It was all technology.
Exactly. We know. We're still developing, but we will get there. It's not getting bad at all, and I know we will get better. I'm always hopeful for our continent. So yes, Lindy, give us a picture. How did you rise from 1 to 20,000? Obviously, South Africa is big, but What are you getting wrong? Lindy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
I can clearly, yes. So tell us, what is it that has made South Africa's figures to go that high?
You know, it's a mixture of people don't believe that you know, the disease is actually something that will reach them. And so the communication that's been spread around, people are like not taking it seriously. But as it is with most of our African continent, is that people live in congested areas.
Right.
One of the highly impacted places in Gauteng is Alexander, as they call it. They call it the township in our lingo. But you find a family of 6-7 people living in a shack. That's what we call it, in one room. You know, it's a bedroom, it's the kitchen, and it doesn't even have a toilet facility. And that is where people have to help themselves within the same room. All that is, you know, that differentiate the various areas is probably a curtain or cardboard, so that you know that that's the sleeping area, and this is the lounge. But also the facilities, we come to the rural areas, we don't have the facilities. Water is precious. You know, our dams are getting lower and lower where the water resources are concerned. But how do you tell a person in the rural village to wash their hands thoroughly when they battle to have access to water?
Right.
You know, and then you tell them to sanitize. How do they sanitize when they battle to get the bare necessities to move from day one, you know, from day to day? You know, that people kind of like take things like sanitizing and washing your hands, they take it lightly, as if it should be done everywhere, you know. Yes, people in towns and in suburbs can afford to do that, but the majority of the population, let's face it, still does not, cannot be able to afford to do that. I mean, you know, you take it for granted that I'll buy a bar of soap and just use it for sanitization. That bar of soap probably for that person needs to last them, you know, a month.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So I think those that are privileged take it for granted that, you know, we'll just sanitize and stuff this communication that they're telling us, you know, it won't get to me. Whereas the majority of the people are battling.
Yes. Thank you, Lindy. And I'm going to come to Preetesh and ask, in spite of all this, we see the government sort of easing restrictions. I'll take your thought on that in a minute, but let me say hello to all those who are watching us on Facebook and also on YouTube. I've been receiving your messages. Thank you to all those. Chris, our brother Chris Tokwa says, great job, guys. Every blessings. Thank you so much. My brother Tawe Johnson, Adolphus, you remember Tawe? He's watching us all the way from, I think, somewhere. Is it Ukraine? And also Daniel Dega, Enoch Kazasu, Rachel Onuma, Felix Akoya, Anabo Kojo Edu Asare, Akuno Abraham, Lola, and all those who are watching us, Vic, Victoria Tete, someone watching us from Senegal, all over, Kwame Ajato, Ruby Nakumia, Kamara Alpha, my colleague, Kwame Yabenu, someone watching us even from Sweden. Lush, thank you so much. Thank you to all those who have joined us live and are watching us on YouTube and on Facebook. So thank you. Let me come now again to you, Preetesh. So yes, here is a case that the figures are not going down, same like Ghana, same like Senegal. And yet we see the government easing some restrictions. Should we be worried?
Yes. See, I think overall our biggest challenge is this. I think the government is aware of all of the challenges and they're aware of all of the data. They've got more data than we have access to. And as Lindy has echoed, we have some real challenges which are not unique to South Africa. I think it's many places around the world, and especially across the continent, experience these dynamics. But also one of the dynamics that we have is that food security is a big challenge. There are many people right now who are in a very, very dangerous situation. And the only way to protect them is to allow them to be in a position to to earn an income so that they can improve their food security, because the government doesn't have the means to do so. So I think therefore there's a staged approach that government has got in place. I think tonight our President Cyril Ramaphosa is going to announce that we're moving from our stage 4 to a stage 3. And I think the only reason that's accelerating the move from one stage to another is, one, that they've come to a point where they're prepared to deal with the cases. So it's flattening the curve so that they can deal with the cases. They expect the numbers to go higher, but they're putting the resources and systems in place to be able to deal with it. They're hoping that they've got enough thinking amongst those who can actually afford, sanitization to be able to use it. But I think what we should be concerned about is everything that I've been reading has said that all of the measures being taken, it has been done with a mindset that they understand that the figures are going to go up. I mean, the latest figures I've seen have shown that they consider this to still be an issue in November in South Africa, with cases spiking to over 1 million people being infected. But it's balancing, isn't it? How do you balance the economic realities of a country that our country has some really major challenges with downgrades and other challenges and food security with the challenges of COVID-19. And I do not envy anyone in leadership right now, because the reality is, regardless of where they may be in leadership, but anyone in the developing world in leadership, they cannot make the perfect decision. It just doesn't exist. And the decisions they're making are really tough ones. And I think the South African leadership are in the same position. They're not making the perfect decision, but they're making the best decision that they can make under the circumstances.
Right. And we'll be going over to Africa's biggest populated country, Nigeria, and get the latest from Anny, from Naziru. Naziru, if you are with us. Someone on Facebook was just telling me, Celia Thompson said, well, I was the first to join. Hey, Celia, thank you. And Belinda and Jeffrey from Senegal, hello to you as well. Thank you. We appreciate this greatly. Naziru, if you are with us, give us what is the latest update. It looks like Ghana and Nigeria have been rotating in terms of the figures. Sometimes Ghana will overtake, Nigeria will take over. As at yesterday, I think you were hovering around 7,000. Give us the latest update. Naziru, are you with us? Anny, can you take it over? You were telling us a bit earlier. So when are we next expecting? Oh, yes, Naziru, over to you. So give us the latest update from Nigeria in terms of the figures, and what more do we expect from the government?
The government initially announced the easing of our lockdown for 2 weeks. So it came up with like a 3-phase reopening process. So, but after the first one, which was like the first 2 weeks of the easing of the lockdown, and then the committee responsible for the task force now met and advised the president not to move to the country to the second phase. And then, so the president issued a statement asking us to maintain the first phase, which means they were not really getting what they expected to get, because our cases doubled within that 2 weeks of reopening. It was a gradual reopening, partial, because not everything was reopened. But in terms of the numbers, yesterday we added 265 numbers, taking our total to 7,526. So Lagos remained the epicenter of our crisis, and then obviously followed by another, the most populous state in the country, that is Kano, and also some other states there as well, including the capital Abuja. So this is where we are in terms of the numbers. So we are in the third week. We have just finished the third week of gradual reopening. So on Monday, we will start the fourth week. And so we, after next week, we would now hear again from the president and his team on what to do next. So our major problem is we have not been able to get people to adhere to the public health measures like social distancing and other stuff. Yeah, some do, but some are clearly not doing. Especially in other states, not like in Abuja and Lagos and in many other states, people are not adhering to this. So this is a major problem, and also the government have not been able. Yesterday, the task force was complaining that some states have not been doing enough in terms of contact tracing. For example, the country at the moment has the capacity to do 2,500 daily tests, but it is only doing 1,500 because you need to trace people before you test, and you can't just be testing everybody on the street. That means you'll be spending a lot of money for nothing. So this is a major problem that the country is facing.
Wow, but Naziru, one concern though is if yesterday alone you recorded over 200, that is worrying. I was listening to the New York governor who was saying what the scientists are telling him and what the medical folks are saying is if he can record any figure below 100, that's for New York at least, it will mean, of course, every death is still, anyway, here it's more about death. So yes, but recording more than 200 in a day seems to be quite a figure to mention. Let's go to East Africa.
That is only cases, and it's across Nigeria, not in one state.
Exactly, yes, that's across Nigeria. Very well noted. Thank you, Naz. Let's go to East Africa and see if we can reconnect with Dictor. Dictor, can we hear you clearly now?
I don't know. You tell me.
Yes, it is better. Okay. Thank you. So it seems the audio is way better. So I would like you to again give us a bit of what you were telling us about the situation in East Africa and with the easing of restrictions and also concerns with movements.
Okay, so in Uganda, they are going to open for private cars starting next week, and then the following week, it's public transport. That's when they'll open. Mostly, the government was sort of forced to do that because the president had to do two press conferences consecutively to correct one where he had said you have to wait for masks, a nationwide distribution of masks before they could open, and he had said that would happen in 2 weeks, but it seemed the public had become hostile, most especially because most of the cases for Uganda have come from truck drivers moving across East Africa, and people felt like it does not make sense for the country to stay in lockdown. Of course, people no longer have food, people no longer have incomes, a lot of people are losing jobs. So people felt like they were being exploited at the expense of truck drivers. So the hostility, I think, got the president to change his mind a day later. And so they are opening here in Uganda, like I said earlier. Tanzania did not close. Kenya closed with some modification. Their closure wasn't as strict as Uganda's. Same goes for South Sudan. So, and then Rwanda had closed the same way as Uganda, but after some time they started opening up. They opened up earlier than Uganda. So it's the opening has been going on, although the cases, of course, are not going down. They are going up instead.
Yes.
But people don't feel like that's a problem because they are more worried about survival, about can I make my rent? Can I go on with my business? Can I go home if I have to? Because for most of us, at least here in Uganda, you'll find you live in, say, the city, which is Kampala, but you have a home in the village. if things don't work out, if you are out of a job, if you're not so healthy, you then go back to the village and go back to the land. So people feel like they need to be allowed to be mobile so that they can decide whether they go back home or they stay and work. So that has been the thing, but the cases in Uganda are still not so many. We wait to see if things will get worse once the opening happens.
Perfect, thank you. We are about winding up now. We should be winding up now, but I want us to finish on a positive note. Tell me what in your view has been working in terms of innovations. The stories I've been hearing from here, for example, Senegal, a lot have been coming from Senegal. Adolphus, let me see you on video shortly and then you tell me, but also let's look at our respective countries. What do you think has been the best innovation that you've seen? Mostly maybe from the governments of our countries. We've seen test tubes coming or testing kits from fantastic examples from Senegal, creating stuff like their own type of incubators and all those stuff. I will come to our respective countries and let's sum up on a very positive note in terms of, and if you have any projections as to where we are going, then we can take it from. So Adolphus, definitely I want to begin with you because Senegal has made a lot of headlines, especially here in the US. And probably it's also, I don't know if it is because a lot of the international media are based in Dakar. So a lot of those stories of, but tell me, what do you see in terms of maybe people's response and how positive it's been, and also in terms of innovations from the government? Mawolo, I think you are muted.
Yes, you're quite correct.
Perfect.
Thank you. I say to you, Benjamin, and our colleagues on the platform here that I'm not sure that life will ever go back the way it used to be after this. And this is one moment that I'm really proud of Africans for the innovations and inventions that have really come about so fast as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. When this outbreak spread to West Africa, there was a short supply of face masks, and that was quite worrying. And over time, the speed with which people went into action to create face masks, even though not 100% the best that health workers would recommend, but it is really helping. It has filled a gap that everyone, almost everywhere in the streets, will have a nose mask. So for me, that stands out. Also another thing that I saw ordinary people doing. Before, people will go to restaurants to eat, but people they've made a switch. Now you just order, they deliver. And these were things that we were not doing before now. And even transportation, different approaches, different methods that we were not used to have really come about. And for me, what that says to me is that we just need structural arrangement, structural reorientation. Everything is possible. It's just about reorganizing, identifying, and putting priorities in the orders that they're supposed to be and live by them, and everything else will be possible. So for me, those are the little things that I really took away from this outbreak, and the way also companies, businesses have been able to just, migrate online. So in Senegal, a lot of businesses have really made that digital migration. So almost everybody got a mobile money account. So you just buy things online and it's very swift. You put in your order in 2 or 3 hours, it is delivered to you. So for me, these are improvements that I really see. And I think that after this, these are things that we should let go of. We can only improve on them. Even the system of education. Public schools, not very well, because a lot of kids are learning by radio and television, but some private schools, the systems that people have in the US whereby students can do distance learning, they have the systems. All these schools had to do was just to integrate. You've lost.
Yes, Mawolo. Yes, Mawolo, thank you so much. It's nice, hitting on the nose mask and all that. In fact, churches that will never even have a Facebook page are suddenly streaming online. Anny, how has Ghana innovated? What has impressed you the most in this time of crisis? Annie, you are muted, sorry. Perfect.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
yeah,
clearly.
Great. I think that the stories are across local business go to Christmas, especially in terms of operating on the mobile space. For example, like in a digital space, has really increased. A lot more people didn't kind of want to work, ignoring the possibility of working from home. Now is working. Weddings, for example, are not makeshift studios in the homes of the presenters so that they can program from home, and it's working effectively.
Annie, sorry, let me revert to you. The audio is breaking, so please hang on a second. I'm going to come back to you, please. Preetesh, tell me about, of course, one of the big things that came from Ghana too was when I think the trade minister went to inspect places where they were creating masks and protective equipment. It made also a big headline in terms of how local innovations were tackling the challenge without necessarily falling on. Preetesh, tell me about the South African side. How has the government innovated, and what has impressed you the most?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe in twofold. I think firstly, in terms of the innovation, was how quickly the government actually acted to put mechanisms in place to get businesses and wealthy private individuals to support the economy and support society in this really, really tough time. So launching things such as the Solidarity Fund, getting, and I think that's what's important, getting a lot of different individuals invested in the idea that they need to stop being necessarily focused on themselves, but focus on overall society. And that was something I think was impressive at the speed at which that was done. On the second side, because it's a media forum and we have a lot of, a lot of my colleagues here in the media environment, our big challenge is we recognize that advertising is one of the ways that props up our organizations and will allow us to do good work in the media environment. And it's difficult getting that, advertising is dipped. But one of the things I want to leave you about in terms of a future and have a look at it is that sure, it is tough and a lot of organizations are going to stop advertising at this stage or reduce their advertising. But the reality is normal economic forces. What is going to happen is the media owners, and it could be our organizations as well, is going to start discounting the space, the ad space that they have available. And as soon as that actually happens, then one of the things that we're hoping and we're projecting is that a lot of brands are then going to come back in. They're going to look at what they're paying in 2020 versus 2019 and see it's significantly cheaper. They'll start buying more, their competitors will start buying more. And because of that, we see the creative upswing to start happening to support that. So one of the things that we're hoping, we're predicting is that by Q4, we should see some recoveries coming into the media environment so that at least the strength of media organizations across the African continent will remain strong and will be sustainable for a long period to come.
Perfect. Naziru, are you with us?
Yes, Benji.
Yes, Naziru, what has impressed you the most with the Nigerian government tackling of the issue, and also how the population, businesses have innovated in your view?
In terms of government, I think it was the fact that even though they responded very slowly at the beginning, and that in a way had contributed to the rising number of cases, but still they went back, gathered themselves, and sprang into action. And that had, in a way, helped us to reduce the number of cases and also open up testing centers in different parts of the country. Even though we still don't have enough, we feel, but I think we are moving in the right direction. The only challenge is the government needs to come out and enforce these public health measures, because that is where they are lacking. And also the interstate movement that was banned people continue to flood that with the aiding of some security, unpatriotic security agents. So I think that's where the government needs to work more. In terms of innovation, obviously, like in many other places, businesses keep innovating. You see, we last week held our board meeting for 5 consecutive days online, for example, and we were thinking of how now can we use this opportunity to even more of to move more of our operations online, because that helps, and also it saves cost as well. So a lot of businesses are doing that. Banks, even hospitals. You see hospitals offering some kind of like services online as well. So you don't have to visit hospital because of the danger of contracting the disease or taking it to medical workers. So I think we are in the right direction, but we hope the economy will start bouncing back soon, because that is very, very key to every plan that we have.
Thank you, Naziru. And then Dicta, before we conclude with our new Osabutey. Dicta, what has impressed you most from the East African side in terms of innovations in tackling the challenge, but also in businesses sustaining?
Let me start by saying that at the beginning of this pandemic, everyone was saying Africans would be dying the most, over 1 million or something.
Yes.
I'm excited that so far we have not gone that way. It looks like we are having less infections and less deaths. Hopefully it goes on like that. But in terms of innovation, I'd say some of the things that I've seen is that the fact that communities are willing to contribute towards the survival of everyone. That, for example, here in Uganda, most businesses have contributed to the national effort in terms of money, in terms of providing ambulances, for some, in terms of providing food. People have really, really come together to make sure that if we are in lockdown, people are not dying of hunger. I also, the other things are that the shortages of PPE are trying, the government working with the private sector is trying to address that by getting factories to manufacture PPE without having to import it, because as you may already know, it's been quite hard to get from elsewhere since all countries are facing this pandemic. So for me, I think those would be the top 3.
Perfect. And Anny, let's reconnect with you and hope it gets better now. You were telling us earlier about what has been impressive for you.
Well, I was saying that, if you look at stories from different parts of especially in Africa, our stories are no different from what my other colleagues from the different parts of the continent kind of narrated with respect to local small businesses, for example, also taking it upon themselves to manufacture PPEs. Right now, the wearing of face masks has become more like a major part of the prevention exercise. For example, when you have a lot of businesses going into that particular direction and they're producing, and I think one area too that I'm extremely excited about has to do with the role individuals are playing to donate PPEs to their local communities. It's like it's kind of a lot more people to look out for their communities, in the sense that each other's we become more or less like each other's keeper, and therefore if I have a little, I give to this. I think for me, one of the things also has to do with the kind of the funding support that the government is also giving small and medium scale businesses, because that most of these operations kind of employ a lot of people. Once COVID came, people were laid off. I know a lot of friends who are no longer working, but as soon as the outlets continue to benefit from these money, they call them back to start operation. Not everybody though, but some way, somewhat, all of them are back. I've also been encouraged by the fact that ordinary citizens are thinking through tech solutions, in the sense that friends who run tourism related
businesses.
Businesses now they are doing virtual tours for clients abroad, and they are, though I mean it may not necessarily kind of feel like before, but they are also using the digital space to do some of these things. Just to touch on what semester visiting the PP, the center manufacturing the PPs, and I remember when a story broke, CNN did a story, and the thing was coming from Ivory Coast, but it is actually here in Ghana. It was done by Nora Bannerman, a well-known Ghanaian entrepreneur, really known in the fashion industry. It is her outfit that kind of came through some of these things. So what COVID has taught us is that, look, if we decide to look within ourselves and we get a support from our state institutions, we can produce, and we will not necessarily have to rely heavily on the Western world. As we speak, nobody's traveling, and we are not dead, right?
Yes.
Nobody's traveling. We are all here. If we all make it a point, a conscious effort that we can patronize local tourist spots and post the pictures on our Instagram, just as we go to Dubai, we go to all these places and do. Yes. We encourage a lot more businesses. We encourage a lot more hands to be employed. You walk the street of New York, you see people selling very basic, ordinary things. You go to Times Square, you see thousands of people come there, and ordinary people are selling stuff, tickets for people to go and watch Broadway shows and things like that. But because of COVID, nobody's traveling. We are not dead. I just hope and pray that all is said and done, we as Africans will look within and begin to patronize heavily our own thing. Do not doubt the fact that and produce quality and that the public has the appetite for it.
What a nice way to sum it up. Anny Osabutey, thank you so much. Well, our viewers from all over the continent who have connected and have been watching us, we want to say it's been a pleasure bringing you the maiden edition of the African Journalist Hangout. We just concluded with Anny Osabutey from Ghana. Anny is Head of Communications at the National Petroleum Authority. In South Africa, we were joined by Preetesh Sewraj, who is the CEO of what's arguably the biggest branding and communications company on the continent and in the Middle East, and that is Loeries. Preetesh, it's been a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me on. It's been good being here.
Perfect. And Lindy, thank you so much. Lindy has played a crucial role in bringing this together. My sister, God bless you.
God bless you. And before I leave, I'd like to say congratulations to everybody who's got accolades. Preetesh, for your role as the new CEO of the Loeries. You know, the new role for who's, you know, the editor-in-chief in Nigeria. And
yes.
of course, you,
Naziru.
my brother, Naziru. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, congratulations. And once again, our sincere condolences. And of course, my brother, you for your accolades, for graduating. I feel like humiliating. That's how we do it in Africa, but I won't. So thank you so much for this forum. And we hope to have many more.
Exactly. We will be doing more. Let me say a big thank you to Benedicta Asimwe, editor at the Daily Monitor in Uganda, which is part of the Nation Media Group in East Africa, one of the biggest print and online publications we have on the continent. Naziru, it's been a big pleasure having you. Thank you so much. I know today is a big day. Please go and enjoy all the mouton and enjoy the celebration. And I will say Eid Mubarak to all our Muslim brothers and sisters. From all of us, earlier we had Adolphus Mawolo joining us from Senegal. I know he had to go because he's on production in News Must Go On. So thank you once again, everyone. And thank you for all your messages on social media from Facebook and on YouTube, and those who have been texting to be saying you are watching. We appreciate your time, and hopefully either the next weekend, if things work out well, we'll come out again and bring up, and we'll be changing the discussions and the topics, and hopefully we'll keep the discussions going. From me, again, thank you all. Anny, thank you, and everyone. Have a pleasant Sunday.
Okay, thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.